Welcome to In Focus with Eden Lane.
Hi, I'm Eden Lane. Today we're at the Denver City and County Building for a press conference about to take place on the steps impacting the arts in Colorado. 3 Colorado organizations have just received ArtPlace grants, and we're here to get all the details.
A total of $650,000 was awarded to 3 Colorado organizations, 2 in Denver and 1 in Loveland. We begin with Liz Crane from ArtPlace America.
It's so exciting to have you come and visit Colorado, not just because we love it when people come to visit, but you've brought a lot of money with you.
Yeah.
Tell me about what it was like for your organization to even begin this process of these huge grants that you're spreading across the entire country.
Sure. Well, we were formed out of the vision of Rocco Landesman, the former chairman of the National Endowment for the Arts, and he talked to a number of the national and regional foundations about this vision around creative placemaking and the idea that art can have a substantial impact on place and the future of place. So these foundations, seeing sort of the value of this proposition, came together, pooled their resources, and then ArtPlace America was born to re-grant out these funds to organizations around the country with really innovative, cutting-edge ideas, and then to look at some of the sort of larger impacts and changes in research and sort of evaluation work around those grantees to help build the case and the story of how these projects are transforming their communities.
What is the relationship like between the grantees after they've received the funds, or is it just here's the money, you meet the goals as you can?
Sure, we do a lot of field building work and a lot of convening. So we do an annual summit with all of our grantees where we come together, talk about challenges, ideas, and sort of making the case for these projects. We also stay in regular communication, and each of our grantees is required to blog once a month. And those blogs actually go up on our website and serve as the sort of stories and documentation of their progress. So our grantees and everyone around the country can actually follow how these projects are progressing and what challenges they're running into, what lessons they're learning, and then what successes they're seeing. So.
And perhaps they can, having shared those lessons, it helps the other grantees as well.
Absolutely. I think that shared learning experience is one of the things that I think we bring to the table, and that I think philanthropy is doing a lot more around these days, recognizing that nobody's working in isolation, particularly when you're working on complex issues around place and community development. It's really good to have shared stories and shared lessons sort of circulating around to help the whole field progress.
Now that you're here for one day to give away money, will you get a chance to come back and see these projects as they come to fruition?
Oh, I hope so. I think they're all really exciting. I'd love to see the granary in Loveland, and I saw Junction Box earlier today. The space is beautiful, and I think people are going to be coming in and out of that. It's going to be really great. But I would love to see the Oh Heck Yeah project when they sort of bring all these big interactive LED screens and arcade games and the whole experience that they're going to create. We're really looking forward to seeing what comes out of that, sure.
And you can see that on your way to see a piece of theater at the Denver City.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just looking around us right now, we're at City Hall, and there's museums this way and art centers that way and great public spaces and everything. So there's a lot here, and we look forward to exploring it.
Well, welcome to Colorado, and thank you for bringing so many funds with you.
Yeah, and we hope that it only encourages more people to support these kinds of projects and to support projects in general around the state. So, yeah.
I also caught up with the Honorable Cecil Gutierrez, Mayor of Loveland.
Well, congratulations for Loveland receiving this great ArtPlace grant. How did this even begin in your community?
Well, gosh, there were a lot of folks who have worked on this project, so there's a lot of thank yous to go around. The Art Space project and the Feed and Grain, this goes back years when we had some folks in the community that wanted to save the Feed and Grain. And that Feed and Grain is an iconic building in our city, and it was scheduled for demolition. And so then there were community members and a local business person who stepped up to save that building. And then it's transformed itself into kind of an art place. So now we're going to have not just the arts going on in that Feed and Grain, but we will also have an art space project there, which is affordable housing for our artists. So it's amazing.
In your comments, you mentioned that the arts and creative community of Loveland accounts for 8% employment. That's really quite high, even in Colorado. Tell us about that.
It is. It's like I say, over 30 years ago, we had some young artists who moved to town and came to town. We had some local artists, and they started to figure out how to promote the arts, and we, they established a foundry, and now we've got 3 foundries in the area, and it's just kind of grown up over the last 3 decades. And so that employment has just naturally grown as we've promoted the city as an arts community.
It can account for the support that you get throughout the business community for this kind of development in Loveland.
We do get a significant amount of support from the business community because, the arts provide a wonderful quality of life. It's not all about going to work 8 to 5 or whatever every single day. There's times you need to relax, and so the arts just provide that quality of life as another component of just the wonderful quality of life that we have in the city of Loveland.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Now we visit one of the ArtPlace America locations, Junction Box. We get more background from Garrett Ammon, the artistic director, and his wife, Dawn Fay, the associate artistic director.
Well, how exciting that we got to be there for the press conference to hear about this wonderful grant that Wonderbound received from ArtPlace America. What does that mean to you to know that as you began this project, that wasn't a foregone conclusion, but now you have that as part of the support for making this transfer?
Yeah, that's really true. We really decided that we were going to do this and we were going to make it happen one way or another. But I think in the process, we had the opportunity to apply for it, and it aligned so perfectly with what we were doing, and it seemed like a great opportunity to be able to expand that and grow that beyond what we would have initially been able to do. And so I think that's really the impact that grant will make on this community, because it will allow us to grow the programming that we're doing here so dramatically is really what matters to us.
And you were fully on the way toward moving from being a suburban-based arts organization in Colorado to being right downtown here in the core, in an area that is ramping up arts so quickly. Your neighbors are a testament to that, but you're right in the center of that. What does that mean to you as artists to be in this new environment?
Well, the big thing is just how the community is already engaged. It's been so organic, because even though, we had some snow and some cold, but a lot of our rehearsal days we were actually able to open our garage doors and have people stand on the street for hours and watch what we were actually doing anyways, not something that was specifically to engage the public, if you will. No, our normal rehearsal day, Garrett was creating a world premiere ballet, and all of a sudden you've got 20, 30, 40, 50 people standing on the street watching art happen and injecting beauty into their lives, and it wasn't planned. It's just there, and all of a sudden it makes something that a lot of people think is really inaccessible, it puts it right in front of them and enables them to have beauty in their lives.
I think that's really the key to why we engaged this entire project, was the realization that the impact that we were making on people's lives through the performances we were doing was significant enough that we could really see that. And the realization that we are missing these huge opportunities to impact people's lives on an ongoing daily basis, rather than disappearing for up to 2 months or more between productions. This allows us to use our art form, the thing that we love, that we get up every day and engage in, to touch people's lives on a constant basis.
It quite literally changes the dynamic of the whole company. Not just because you've changed the name, but because it can no longer be thought of as this elite art form that's set aside for those who can access it with a certain income level. it becomes part of a vibrant, very diverse, very dynamic environment.
Yeah, absolutely. The classical arts all came out of the people. Dance comes from being a social art form that grew out of folk culture, out of villages, and somewhere along the way, I feel like the classical arts managed to lose track of that a little. And I think we're in a time in our broader human history of kind of realizing that we have to reframe that and re-engage and in a real way, in a genuine way, and make art belong to the people again. And I think being in a post office garage is the perfect way to do it. It's so unassuming. It's not a palace. It's not something that's daunting to walk into. It's a space that is very accessible, and that's what we were trying to really do, is let everyone know that you're welcome here anytime.
Yeah. But part of that transition, even before this important, sizable award, was making that distinct cutoff from what Ballet Nouveau Colorado had been before to what you were trying to elevate yourself to, or not necessarily elevate, just extend yourself into. So that included a name change. You're now Wonderbound. It's an attention-getting name. So tell me the story behind the name that you've chosen for this new iteration of your work.
Well, the name and the jackrabbit, the logo, all of the things that kind of compile the visuals behind what Wonderbound is. First
all
of
that
all,
branding stuff.
all the branding stuff, that is all from the mind of Garrett Ammon. So that is all him, including the new website and all of it. We were having conversations with many different people, from donors to Uber fans to other people in the dance community to people who really
Uber fans.
Uber fans to people who didn't know really about Ballet Nouveau necessarily. So there were a lot of different perspectives that came to the table, and what the commonality among all of them is that because of all of the collaborations that we do with other medium in the arts and non-arts groups as well, are just community collaborations. The feedback was, don't limit yourself. Don't feel like you need to explain who you are right away. Like you're bigger than just dance because of the poetry, the live music, the VJs, the visual artists, you name it, we do it, and working with other nonprofits, working with for-profits to engage. So really, Wonderbound, we actually had one of the people who's new to us come and visit rehearsal, and he sat on the couch and he watched some rehearsal, and then we gave him a glass of wine after rehearsal. It was after 5, so it was okay. And he stayed, he talked to Garrett, he wanted to kind of ask some questions, and that's what we've been doing regularly, is letting people have that organic process so that we're not forcing anything upon anyone. But he emailed me the next day and he said, I get the name. I sat on the couch, I watched the dancers, I watched the creative process happen. I was Wonderbound.
Oh.
So, and he's not the first, and nor will he be the last. And so it is a broad kind of name, but it also kind of encompasses all of the things that not only we're doing now, but that we're going to do. So it gives you that breadth to have, so that you don't all of a sudden outgrow your name.
And and I think that there were a lot of choices that we made that were maybe high-risk choices on that level of removing ballet or dance from the name completely, and
because it's not Wonderbound Dance Company, it's
Exactly.
it's just Wonderbound.
Just Wonderbound.
Yeah, and part of that idea is that in the end, if we're doing a collaboration with a band, say, I'm really not concerned as to whether they define it as a live music performance with dance or a dance performance with live music. If they're there and they're experiencing it and enjoying it, that's the real important part to us. And so we want to create the space for it. And I think the entire brand kind of grew out of these ideas that we've been talking about creating curiosity, about inspiring people, about explaining that we're on a journey. And so bound has always been a word that I've been fascinated with, because it has three different meanings from three different root languages, and they each mean something different. So you can bound as in leaping or jumping, but you can also be bound toward something. You can be on a journey, but you can also be bound by something. And the connotation of being bound by something, you can be bound by your community in a very wonderful way. You know that you can be embraced by your community. You can so all of those ideas of what being wonderbound is inclusive of that.
So that emotional and intellectual connectivity is certainly logical when you're familiar with the work that you've brought to Colorado with this company when it was Valley Nouveau Colorado, and now Wonderbound. Tell me about how that works with what you're doing here at the Junction Box, because you're not here alone either.
Yes. In this process of figuring out where we were going to end up and so forth, we ended up in these amazing conversations with Amy Harmon, who's a developer in town and really focused on urban infill development. And she's also helped found the Community Coordinating District, which is all volunteers. And it's really a tool for the community to be able to engage directly with agencies in the city to help improve the neighborhood. So rather than somebody in an office somewhere making an executive decision that this is how money is going to be spent in this neighborhood, the neighborhood now has an opportunity to say, these are our observations, this is our consensus, this is really what we want to see done. So we would like to work with you to evolve this park or this street or so forth in a way that seems functional and right for the constituencies in the neighborhood. And again, it's about creating connections. It's about coming together to achieve a goal rather than working independently. Or also, I think a lot of people in an urban environment feel like they don't have any say about where they are, and they don't even know how to begin. And so what we're hoping by having this close relationship together is to be able to engage that conversation with the neighborhood and encourage people to get involved. And by doing events together in the public spaces in the neighborhood, that we can help revitalize it and inspire people to say, yeah, I want to get involved. I want to come and do a tree planting with these other volunteers, or I want to get involved in talking about how this particular street is improved and maybe evolving how the walkways are done, or there's all kinds of things that can be achieved if people come together, and that's what we love doing as an organization, is collaborating with others and bringing this larger brain power, and by bringing people that have different expertise, and so we really discovered that we had such synergy in our visions and in our goals, even though we're working in completely unrelated activities.
And we know that some of your neighbors have galleries nearby. There's Red Line just around the corner. There's lots of exciting things happening here. But this space, you were giving me sort of a hint of the dream of what Junction Box will become, has other more tangible kinds of components to what you're dreaming of for this. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, the goal in the end is to have multiple tenants in the space, and that are all have some kind of synergy together. We're going to have to make sure that everybody really wants to be involved in this unusual way of working. But again, it comes back to connecting people together and making connections between things that you might not naturally seek out. And so there's going to be some retail space in the building. There's going to be some kind of restaurant or coffee shop or wine bar type space. The community coordinating district will be upstairs. So there's all these different, so that way all these different people are coming together. That's kind of where the name came from. Junction Box is the idea of not only are we at the corners of three major streets, Arapahoe, Broadway, and Park Avenue, but also because it's a place where energy will come and go from, and be able to be directed in many different ways through the community.
There are practical changes in the way that you work as a professional company now when you're not isolated. You're connected with other artists in a very different way than you were before. And when we think about the kinds of connections you were able to build when you were physically further away, I can't imagine what you're going to do now that you're rubbing elbows, as it were, every day. But also on a daily basis, your company will function differently. Tell me a little bit about that, because do you still give class to the company every day, for example?
Yeah, I mean, the schedule basically is the same. There's a ballet class every morning, Tuesday through Saturday. There's rehearsal every day until 5:30 or 6. Weekdays 5:30, weekend 6. But the difference is that this is theirs and only theirs. So it's more of a feeling.
Meaning this beautiful.
Meaning all of this, this entire space is theirs. It is where Garrett creates his art. It is where collaborators will come into the space and help develop work. But it is the dancer's home. It is the dancer's home and only their home. It is truly theirs, and they come in the morning. We're here very early, so whenever they get here is fine. They can enter the space, they can stretch. They can send a couple emails if they like. They can feel at ease before their day ever starts.
They could even work on their own creations.
They can work on their own creations.
Which you always encourage them to do.
Yes, exactly. And so then, we have our class. We have our rehearsal day, they have their lunch break, we continue the rehearsal day, but at the end of the rehearsal day, they can stay and they can stretch, they can do exercises, they can roll on the ball, they can do those things that normally in our previous existence, they had to, 5:29, they had to get their bag, get out of the studio, get in the dressing room, get out. Basically, there was nowhere to go anymore because that was when all of the students would arrive for their classes, which was part of that reality. But now it's just a much more complete reality for them as dancers to have this space be theirs and to have that kind of freedom. It's allowing them all to be even more amazing than they already were because they're getting to have that time.
I think that's obviously going to impact the ability that you have to apply your creativity to the company as a whole, because you have your own time schedule with your own space as well.
Yeah, it's not only time but also the entire environment. So when you take a dance space and suddenly you remove the walls around the dance space
and the mirrors
and you what you end up doing is you create a different relationship to how you engage your art and the process of creating that art. So so we have this huge dance floor. We've removed the mirrors. You can have people in the space and they don't feel like they're intruding because there's so much space. And then also it's actually a really calming reality. Even though we have the energy of the city is a really infuses your process of you have the sense of the people that exist around you.
But it doesn't feel like it's interfering in any way.
No, not at all. And then also one discovery that I had in moving from a space that had mirrors right there in front of you to them being gone was that suddenly I wasn't aware of that anymore. I wasn't, because mirrors make you aware of yourself.
Right.
And by being overly self-aware, you can actually you can perpetuate writer's block if you run into kind of being stuck somewhere. Or
Because judgment enters into it.
yeah, and you start judging yourself, and then you also have 10 dancers behind you standing there patiently watching, waiting for you to do something.
Yes.
And you can see all of their eyes, wherein suddenly I'm in a space where I can just work and not even kind of have that disruption. And it's made the dancers more aware of what they're doing, more aware of themselves on a physical level, and more aware of each other, which is just making them better artists and better dancers.
You said this move was very different for Wonderbound as a dance company because it's not the palace that some arts organizations are in. And I would say that what you're creating here is just a different kind of palace, because it is really quite wonderful and spiritual. And I'm so glad you gave us a chance to come and find out a little bit more, just a little bit more about what you're doing and what that ArtPlace grant will really mean in a practical sense to one of the projects. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Great.
Well, that's the end of our last episode for season 5, and we're about to take our first break after 156 episodes in 5 seasons, not because we're out of energy or because we're out of stories to tell, but we're simply out of funding. We hope to be able to return to you later this summer or at least in the fall. And if you'd like to stay in touch with us to see what we're doing and maybe even find out how you can help, you can find all the details on our webpage at infocustv.org. Before we go, we want to say a big thanks to Colorado Public Television and to Brad Haug for believing in us and giving us this platform to bring these stories to you, and to all of the artists in Colorado who allowed us to share their stories with you. And of course, thank you for joining us.
That's all for this edition. Remember to join us on Facebook and Twitter. With all that Colorado has to offer, we're here to help you keep it in focus. Thanks for watching. Good night.